I was 72 the year my heart finally reminded me that I was no longer indestructible. The doctors called it a mild cardiac episode. Mild, as if fainting on my kitchen floor between the kettle and the radio was just a polite inconvenience. When I woke up in the hospital, there were tubes in my arm, and my son Michael was sitting by the window, scrolling through his phone. "Dad," he said without looking up, "you scared the hell out of us." Us. He meant himself and Linda, his wife, my daughter-in-law of 8 years, who believed compassion was a form of weakness. I remember the fluorescent light humming above me, the smell of antiseptic, the sharp taste of metal in my mouth. My chest ached with each breath, but the pain wasn't just physical. It was the realization that I might not be able to live entirely on my own anymore. "Doctor says you'll need someone around for a few weeks," Michael continued, finally glancing at me. "Just until you're steady again. So we're moving in." He said it like he was doing me a favor. I nodded. I didn't have the strength to argue. They arrived 2 days after I was discharged, the sound of car doors slamming in the driveway, Linda's voice carrying through the crisp February air. "Careful with my blender, Michael. It cost $600. I was sitting in my recliner by the window, wrapped in a gray wool blanket that still smelled faintly of my late wife, Ellen. She'd been gone 5 years, but her perfume, a soft lavender scent, still clung to the fibers of the house. Michael entered first, carrying a box labeled pantry, though I later found out it contained his gaming console and an unopened bottle of bourbon. Linda followed, stylish even in jeans, balancing a tablet and a reusable cup from some trendy cafe. "Dad," she said, air-kissing the space near my cheek, "we'll make sure you're all settled. I already reorganized your fridge. No more butter or red meat. It's all plant-based now. You'll thank me later." I didn't, but I smiled and murmured, "Thank you, dear," because that's what old men do when they don't have the energy for confrontation. They took the guest room, Ellen's sewing room once, now stripped bare except for a fold-out couch. Within hours, boxes were everywhere. Michael's laptop cords dangled across the dining table. Linda's essential oils occupied half the kitchen counter. By evening, the house smelled like lemongrass instead of lavender. At first, I was grateful. Linda cooked dinner, quinoa bowls, and something she called vegan chili. That looked like punishment for living too long. Michael helped me set up a new pill organizer and installed cameras for safety. I didn't like the idea of being watched, but he said, "It's just so we can check on you when we're at work." Work? Michael's work was freelance consulting, which mostly meant taking calls from the couch in sweatpants and saying things like, "We'll circle back after the projections." Linda worked in wellness marketing, which involved shipping herbal powders to people who couldn't pronounce the ingredients. Still, they meant well, I told myself. They were my family. Every morning, Michael would make coffee in my old Braun machine, the one Ellen and I bought in 1987, and bring me a cup with a kind of forced cheerfulness. "How's the old man today?" he'd ask. "Still breathing," I'd reply. "Good. Let's keep it that way." Then he'd disappear into his Zoom meetings, and Linda would start her day pacing through the house, headphones in, saying words like synergy and influencer tier. The house was no longer quiet, but it was no longer mine either. After the first week, I noticed small changes. My mail started arriving already opened, neatly stacked on the hallway table. "I just checked for scams," Michael explained. "Old people get targeted all the time." Old people. Then came the bills, no longer addressed to me, but to M. Hughes and family. When I asked about it, Michael waved a hand. "It's easier to consolidate everything." "Don't worry, Dad. I've got it under control." I wanted to believe him. He was my son, the same boy who used to sit at this very kitchen table doing math homework while I balanced the family checkbook. I used to be proud of how quickly he understood numbers. Now, watching him type on his laptop while sipping coffee from my favorite mug, I wasn't sure what he understood anymore. Linda was efficient in her own way. She took over the grocery shopping, filled the freezer with labeled containers, and replaced my sturdy cotton towels with something she called bamboo textiles. Everything smelled like synthetic eucalyptus. She even helped me sort my medications. "You shouldn't have to deal with this stuff," she said sweetly, emptying the pharmacy bags onto the counter. "You can trust us." Trust. That word used to mean something different. On the third Sunday, I overheard them talking on the porch. My window was open just enough. "He still has all that money sitting in savings," Linda said, her voice low but firm. "We could put it into something that actually earns interest. It's irresponsible to let it sit there." "Yeah, but he's stubborn," Michael replied. "He thinks I'm after his money." "Then stop asking," she snapped. "Just take over the finances. You have the power of attorney anyway." I felt the blood drain from my face. Power of attorney. I remembered signing that paper after the surgery, when the nurse said it was just for emergencies. Michael had said, "It's just a formality, Dad, so I can handle the bills if something happens to you." Something had happened. All right, I trusted him. That night I couldn't sleep. The old grandfather clock in the hall ticked too loudly. I sat at my desk, staring at the faint glow of the street lamp through the curtains. My checkbook lay open. The last payment recorded was the hospital bill, $2,380. After that, nothing. I turned the pages slowly. Empty lines, blank dates, the quiet absence of control. Down the hallway, I heard Michael's laughter, muffled, careless, as if he were in another world entirely. Linda's voice joined in, high and triumphant. The sound of it filled the dark house like an echo from some future I didn't belong to. By the time morning came, I had made myself a silent promise, not spoken aloud, not even written down, just lodged firmly somewhere between my ribs and the ache in my chest. I would find out exactly what they were doing, and when I did, they would learn that this old man still knew how to count. The spring came early that year. Cherry trees bloomed down Cedar Avenue like pink smoke, and the air smelled faintly of soil and diesel from city buses. I used to love that smell, life moving forward. Now it only reminded me how still my own days had become. I woke every morning at 7, though I no longer needed to. Old habits. Michael was usually at the kitchen counter already, typing on his laptop with the intensity of a man pretending to be busy. Linda sat across from him, spreading avocado on toast while lecturing me about sodium intake. "Dad, you shouldn't add salt to your eggs," she said one morning without looking up. "It raises your blood pressure." I glanced at the shaker in my hand. "I've been using salt for 72 years, I said mildly. "If it wanted to kill me, it's had plenty of chances." She laughed, that sharp little sound she made when she thought she was humoring a child. "Just try and keep you around, old man." Old man again. They used the phrase as if it were my first name. After breakfast, Michael would take my mail to sort it. The envelopes disappeared into his office. He said he was filtering out scams and junk, but when I asked about a missing bank statement, he replied, "You don't need to worry about those anymore. I set everything to paperless. It's all digital now." Digital. To a man who still used a flip phone, digital was the same as gone. He was always on his computer. Spreadsheets, phone calls, online meetings. He said he was helping clients manage finances, but sometimes I catch a glimpse of the screen. Not work emails, but my own bank account. Open and active. The numbers looked smaller than I remembered. When I asked, he smiled. "I'm just checking your deposits, Dad, making sure the pension hits on time." He said it in that light, casual tone, the one that implies you're being irrational for even asking. Linda's efficiency, meanwhile, became a slow invasion. She replaced my sturdy armchair with a modern ergonomic recliner that felt like sitting on a rock. My radio vanished. It was too dusty. I tossed it. Even my pantry was reorganized. Gone were the cans of soup and sardines. Now there were glass jars labeled chia and quinoa. I missed the sound of my own clattering cupboards, the comfort of clutter. Once I tried to cook something from the old days, a beef stew Ellen used to love. Linda walked in just as the smell began to fill the kitchen. "Dad," she exclaimed, "you can't eat that. Red meat is basically poison for your arteries." "I've survived worse poisons," I muttered. She took the pot off the stove anyway and dumped it into the sink. I watched her do it, one hand gripping the counter so tightly my knuckles went white. That night I ate plain rice while she and Michael had to take out. By May, my life had been fully scheduled without my input. Linda managed my medications, my meals, my doctor appointments. Michael managed everything else. Bills were automated. The mailbox was obsolete. I was protected. The words sounded good, like padded walls, safe but suffocating. One afternoon, while they were both out, a rare event, I walked to the study. Michael's door was half open. His laptop was asleep, the screen pulsing faintly. Next to it, on the desk, sat a small stack of documents with my name printed in the corner. I recognized the letterhead. Evergreen Financial Trust. I shouldn't have looked, but of course I did. The top page was a summary statement, my savings account. Or rather, what was left of it. Current balance, $14,870. The last number I remembered seeing months ago had been closer to $90,000. I felt the room tilt. Below that, under recent transactions, were 3 entries, all transfers to ML Consulting LLC, each one for more than $25,000. My son's initials, my son's company. That evening, I waited at the dinner table, the papers folded neatly beside my plate. They came home late, laughing, carrying shopping bags. Linda kissed Michael's cheek, then froze when she saw the look on my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone already defensive. I held up the statement. "What's this?" Michael glanced at it and sighed, like a teacher with a slow student. "Dad, those are investments. You weren't earning anything keeping it in savings. I moved it to one of my portfolios, much higher returns." "You moved it?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, flat and slow. "Without asking me. It's my signature on those transfers," he said quickly. "You gave me power of attorney, remember?" I stared at him, at the confident way he folded his arms, at the faint smirk forming on his lips, the same expression he'd worn as a teenager whenever he thought he'd outsmarted me. "Don't worry," he continued. "You'll thank me later when the dividends start rolling in." Linda set the grocery bag on the counter. "You should be grateful, Dad. He's protecting your money. Financial literacy isn't your generation's strength." I wanted to say something cutting, something that would make them stop talking and start thinking. But my chest was tight, and my hands wouldn't stop trembling. So I said, "Nothing." Michael clapped my shoulder on his way out of the kitchen. "Relax, Dad. You've got the best advisor in the family." That night, I couldn't sleep again. The old clock ticked louder than ever. I went through my drawers, tax returns, property deeds, bank statements, all in careful chronological order, as I'd kept them my entire life. Numbers were my language, and the papers were my grammar. One by one, I compared figures. Interest income that used to appear monthly, gone. Pension deposits, rerouted. Utility bills, higher, though my usage hadn't changed. By midnight, I had a rough total. More than $78,000 missing. My breath came shallow. I opened Ellen's photo album for comfort. Her handwriting in the margins soft and looping. On one page she'd written, "Always keep copy. People forget, papers don't." She'd been right about everything. The next morning, I watched them eat breakfast, avocado toast again. Michael was scrolling through his phone, grinning at something. Linda was applying lipstick at the table. "Michael," I said quietly, "when do I get to see the details of that investment?" He didn't even look up. "It's complicated, Dad. You wouldn't understand the structure. I built financial ledgers by hand before you could spell your own name," I said evenly. "Try me." That made him look up, not surprised, just irritated. "Can we not do this now? You're making it awkward." "Awkward?" I repeated. $78,000 is missing and you call it awkward? Linda set down her cup with a sigh. You're being dramatic. He's handling it. You should be resting. I looked from one to the other. My son, my own blood, and the woman who spoke for him. And something cold settled inside me. The same cold that had filled the hospital room months ago when I'd signed that damn paper. I'm resting, I said finally, pushing back from the table. Just not in the way you think. I went back to my room, closed the door, and opened my desk drawer. Inside lay my old accountant's notebook, lined pages, neat handwriting, and a pen that still worked fine. I turned to a fresh page and wrote at the top, account reconciliation starting balance, $90,342. Ending, $14,870. Difference, $75,472. Underneath, I added, suspect, Michael L. Hughes' son. Then I drew a box around it, underlined twice, and wrote, next steps, evidence, timing, witness. The old man they thought they'd silenced had just started his audit. The summer heat arrived like a punishment. By late June, the air in the house hung thick with a smell of reheated vegetables and Linda's eucalyptus candles. The curtain stayed closed most of the time to save on cooling, she said. So the rooms looked dim, gray, almost airless. It suited me fine. I was learning to move in shadows. Every morning they left the house around 9, Michael to client meetings, Linda to her yoga studio, where she mostly sat behind the reception desk and complained about people's posture. Those hours between 9 and noon became my freedom, my investigation window. At first, I only meant to find confirmation, something concrete to prove that the missing money wasn't a clerical error. But the deeper I went, the more I realized there was no error. There was design. The first thing I did was check the bank's website from my own old laptop, not the tablet they insisted I use. They'd given me that tablet for convenience, but the home screen was locked, the passwords saved under Michael's account. My computer, however, was still mine, dusty, slow, but loyal. Logging in wasn't easy. Michael had changed the password. That told me everything. I called the bank instead. After 20 minutes on hold, a young woman with a polite voice said, "Of course, Mr. Hughes. Your son already has full online access. You authorized it last February." I did. I asked, "Under what conditions?" She hesitated. "It says here, unrestricted management authority, including transfers and investment allocation." I thanked her and hung up before my voice could shake. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I sat there staring at the silent screen for a long time. The only sound the ceiling fan clicking unevenly. He'd taken everything legally. The second step was the mailbox. For months I'd accepted that Michael handled the mail, but I still had the spare key. Ellen had hidden one inside a chipped ceramic frog by the porch. One afternoon when they were both gone, I opened it myself for the first time in weeks. It was full. Bank letters, insurance statements, even a notice from the county property office. I carried the stack inside and sat at the kitchen table like I used to, sorting and reading. The insurance letter hit me first, a policy change. Beneficiary updated from Earl Hughes, self to Michael Hughes. The date, March 7th. My birthday. He'd done it on my birthday. Then came the property notice, a tax exemption renewal form, unsigned. If not renewed by July, the exemption would lapse and taxes would triple. Convenient, I thought, if one wanted to push an old man into financial panic. And at the bottom of the pile, an envelope from a company I didn't recognize, Maple Leaf Brokerage Group. Inside, a printed statement for an account number I'd never seen. Balance, $78,000. Account owner, ML Consulting LLC. Transfer origin, Evergreen Financial Trust, E. Hughes. I sat there until the light faded through the blinds. The papers spread before me like evidence in a crime scene. The only movement came from the slow rise of steam from my forgotten cup of tea. They had underestimated the wrong old man. The next morning, I drove to the bank myself. Linda had taken the car keys, but she'd forgotten about the spare set hanging on the basement hook under the coil of extension cord. The old Toyota started on the second try, the engine coughing like an asthmatic smoker. At the branch, a young manager greeted me with that tone reserved for confused seniors. "How can I help you today, Mr. Hughes?" I placed my ID on the counter. "I'd like to review all accounts under my name and verify any joint authorizations." She clicked at her keyboard. "Of course, one moment. Oh, I see here your son Michael is the authorized agent. Would you like him present for this appointment?" "No," I said. "Let's pretend I'm still capable of basic arithmetic." Her smile tightened. She printed a sheet and slid it toward me. Rows of numbers, dates, transfers. I recognized the withdrawals January, February, March, each one signed digitally under Michael's access code. But there was more. 2 months ago, a new credit line opened in my name. $30,000 limit. Maxed out within weeks. The payments were being pulled automatically from my pension account. "For home improvements," the manager said when I asked. The notes mentioned plumbing renovations. I almost laughed. The plumbing was fine. Michael just wanted a new jacuzzi. "Would you like to dispute the charges?" she asked. "No," I said slowly. "Not yet." Because something else had occurred to me. Something sharp and terrible in its clarity. If I made a formal complaint now, he'd know. He'd cover his tracks before I could get proof. So I thanked her politely, took the printouts, and walked out into the blinding daylight. For the first time in months, I felt awake. That night I called an old friend, Harry Coleman, a retired police officer who lived 3 houses down. He answered on the second ring. "Harry, it's Earl. I need advice. Hypothetically, if someone uses your legal power of attorney to drain your account, what do you do?" There was a pause, then a grunt. "You revoke it. Immediately. Get a lawyer. Make copies of everything. And stop pretending it's hypothetical." I smiled despite myself. Still sharp. "I'd better be. Otherwise, who'd stop you from getting robbed blind by your own blood?" His bluntness was a relief. People tiptoe around you when you're old, as if you'll break from hearing the truth. Harry never did. "I don't want to make it ugly," I said. "He's my son." "Then don't make it ugly," he replied. "Make it legal." The next morning, I called a law firm listed in my old accountant's address book, Margaret Collins and Associates. Margaret herself answered. Her voice had the crisp, measured patience of someone who'd seen too many family betrayals. "Mr. Hughes," she said, after I explained, "do you still have cognitive control over your finances? I can still count past 10 if that's what you mean." "Good. Then we can work with that." We met the next day. I brought a thick folder, bank printouts, letters, the brokerage statement, even the insurance change notice. Margaret examined them like a surgeon assessing a wound. "Classic misuse of fiduciary power," she said finally. "Not uncommon, sadly. You have 3 options: revoke authority, file a fraud complaint, or quietly reverse what he's done." "Quietly?" I asked. She smiled. "Sometimes the cleanest revenge is simply restoring order." I like that. Restoring order. Not revenge, just accounting. By the time I left her office, I had signed the papers revoking Michael's power of attorney and opening a new trust account under my sole control. The funds would be rerouted in 48 hours. I stopped at a small cafe afterward, ordered black coffee, and for the first time in months, it tasted like freedom. Bitter, hot, and exactly what I needed. That evening, I came home to find Michael pacing in the living room. His laptop lay open on the couch, the screen filled with red notifications. He looked up sharply when I entered. "Dad, what the hell happened to the account?" "The bank says the transfers are frozen." "Really?" I said, hanging my hat on the rack. "Must be a system error." "Don't play games with me," he snapped. "I need access to handle your bills." "Handle them yourself, then." You've had enough practice." He blinked, confused, then angry. "You went behind my back?" I looked at him, really looked. The expensive watch, the pressed shirt, the faint smell of cologne that cost more than my month of medication. This was not the boy I'd taught to ride a bike. This was a man who had learned all my skills, precision, patience, planning, and turned them against me. "I'm just taking back what's mine," I said quietly. "Nothing more." He laughed, short, disbelieving. "You're overreacting. I was investing for your future." I stepped closer. "Then why is your name on the account?" His mouth opened, then closed again. He glanced toward the hallway where Linda stood, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The refrigerator hummed. The ceiling fan creaked. Outside, crickets began their evening chorus. Finally, I said, "I'm going to bed. Early day tomorrow." "Doing what?" Michael asked bitterly. "Restoring order," I said, and walked past them both. In my room, I sat by the window, watching the faint reflection of the porch light tremble on the glass. The papers were safe now, locked in a folder under my bed. But it wasn't just about money anymore. It was about dignity, about knowing where the line was drawn and who had crossed it. I reached for Ellen's photograph, the one taken in 1983, when she was laughing at something I'd said. "I'm fixing it, love," I whispered, "one ledger at a time." And for the first time in many nights, I slept soundly, with a peace that only comes when you finally decide to stop being someone's victim. The first thing I noticed that morning was the silence. No blender whirring in the kitchen, no Linda's voice humming through a phone call. Even the house seemed to be holding its breath. I brewed my coffee the way I liked it. Real beans, 2 spoons of sugar, no almond milk in sight. The air smelled like it used to when Ellen was alive. Familiar. Mine again. Then at 8:43, a message came through. "Michael, we need to meet at the bank. Today, .11.m.be there." "No, please. No, Dad. Just a command." I looked at the clock. The second hand ticked softly, calm and steady. I felt the same way. The branch was busy. Retirees waiting for tellers, a mother balancing a stroller and deposit slips, the smell of coffee and printer toner. I'd chosen a gray suit for the occasion, one the last Ellen had insisted I keep for proper business. The fabric was a bit tight around the shoulders, but I stood straighter than I had in years. Michael arrived late, phone pressed to his ear, wearing a navy blazer and that smug expression that used to charm clients and now only reminded me of deceit. Linda followed a few steps behind, high heels clicking, sunglasses still on indoors, the uniform of someone allergic to accountability. "Dad," Michael said with a forced smile, "glad you came. Let's get this sorted." "Yeah." He put an arm around my shoulder like a politician before an election. The gesture made my skin crawl. We approached the manager's desk, the same young woman from my last visit. Her badge read Megan, branch operations. She looked up, smiled politely, then glanced between us. "Mr. Hughes, Mr. Hughes," she said, emphasizing the repetition. "How can I help?" Michael took the lead. "There's been a misunderstanding. My father accidentally revoked my authority on his accounts. We're here to fix that." He slid a folder across the desk, the edges of the paper perfectly aligned. Always the professional. Megan opened it, brows knitting as she scanned the contents. "I see, but these documents are void as of yesterday, sir. The account ownership was formally restructured." Michael's tone sharpened. "What do you mean void? I've been managing his finances for over a year." "Yes," she said evenly. "And that management has been rescinded. As of this morning, all access has been transferred back to Mr. Earl Hughes exclusively." Linda's voice cut in, sharp as broken glass. "That's ridiculous. My father-in-law doesn't even know what day it is half the time. He's confused, disoriented." I reached into my briefcase and laid a stack of papers on the desk with quiet precision. These are copies of the bank transfers signed under my son's access code. $78,000 moved to his personal LLC. Another 30 taken on credit in my name. If confusion exists here, it's certainly not mine. The sound of paper sliding across the polish would made people look up. 2 customers at the counter turned slightly, pretending not to listen, but doing exactly that. Megan adjusted her glasses, scanning the documents. "Mr. Hughes," she said softly, "do you wish to file a formal report?" Michael's face went pale. "Dad, what the hell are you doing?" "Restoring order," I said, the words tasting calm and cold, just like I told you. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You can't do this. It'll destroy everything I've built." "What you've built," I replied, "was mine to begin with." Linda crossed her arms. "You're humiliating us in public." "Good," I said. I was worried the message might not be clear in private. A ripple of silence followed. Megan stood, excused herself briefly, and returned with another woman, older, sterner, the kind who looked like she'd seen every kind of fraud under the sun. Her badge read Regional Compliance Officer. "Mr. Hughes," she addressed me, "we'll review your documentation immediately. You'll receive confirmation by the end of the day." Then she turned to Michael and Linda. "I'd advise you not to make any further transactions or adjustments while this matter is under investigation." Linda's jaw tightened. "You can't just..." But the officer was already walking away, my folder in hand. Michael stood frozen, color draining from his face. For the first time since childhood, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. Not guilt, not yet, but fear. He whispered, "You went to a lawyer." "I did." "You're going to ruin me." "No, son," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." We walked out together into the harsh Medicine light. The parking lot shimmered with heat. For a moment, I thought he might say something, an apology, maybe, or at least an explanation. Instead, he took off his jacket, ran a hand through his hair, and muttered, "I can't believe you do this to family." That word, family, hit me harder than I expected. I stopped, turned to face him fully. "Family doesn't mean ownership, Michael. It means duty, respect. I gave you everything because I believed you understood that." He didn't answer. Linda was already unlocking the car, her jaw set in silent fury. "Don't worry," I added, stepping closer so he could hear the steel in my voice. "You'll get to explain everything soon, to people who know exactly what fiduciary misconduct means." His head snapped up. "You filed a complaint?" I smiled faintly. "Let's call an audit." Then I walked away, leaving him standing there in the heat, still holding that expensive jacket like a flag of surrender. That evening I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the light fade behind the maples. The air smelled of cut grass and the faint metallic scent of summer rain. Harry wandered over from next door, carrying 2 beers. "Heard you had yourself a showdown," he said, settling into the chair beside me. "You could call it that." "About time," he grunted, opening his bottle with a keychain. You should have seen his face when I passed him on the road. Kid looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Not a ghost," I said, sipping slowly. "Just an old accountant with good records." Harry chuckled and grew quiet. "You owe Carol?" I thought about it. The bank, the papers, the look in my son's eyes when the balance of power shifted back to where it belonged. "I'm fine," I said finally, for the first time in a long while. The cricket started up again, steady as heartbeat. The audit had begun, and for once, the numbers were working in my favor. I didn't see Michael or Linda for 3 days after the scene at the bank. The house was quieter than it had been in months. No blender whirring, no perfume cloud arguments over whose turn it was to pay for streaming subscriptions. Only the sound of the clock, steady and impartial, marking time like a witness. They avoided me. Fine. I spent those days cleaning. Real cleaning. Not Linda's aromatherapy surface wipes, but soap, rags, the bucket from the shed. I washed the kitchen floor until I saw my own reflection, pale, wrinkled, alive. By the third evening, a letter arrived from Collins and Associates. Dear Mr. Hughes, we have confirmed misappropriation of funds and unauthorized credit activity. A formal notice has been filed with the local financial crimes unit. Please find enclosed your copy of the revocation order and restitution petition. Below that Margaret had written by hand, You've done well, Earl. Take a breath. They won't see it coming. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it into Ellen's old recipe tin, the one labeled holiday cookies, and placed it back on the shelf. My wife always said the sweetest things in the house were never in the kitchen. She'd have appreciated the irony. Friday night, Michael came home drunk. The front door banged open around midnight, and I heard his shoes scrape the hallway tile. I stayed in my chair, the lamp low, reading a battered copy of The Old Man and the Sea. He froze when he saw me. Waiting up for me now, he sneered. Gonna check my receipts? I don't need to, I said. Other people are doing that for me. He stared, eyes red, tie crooked, the smell of whiskey hanging off him like guilt. You think you've won something, he said slowly. You're gonna regret this, Dad. They'll drag your name through the mud. You look senile, paranoid. I closed the book. The truth doesn't mind the mud. He stepped closer. You destroyed my company. Do you know what happens when clients hear about a fraud investigation? Yes, I said, calm as the tick of the clock. They move their money somewhere safer. For a long moment, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he kicked the wall, leaving a dent in the plaster, and stormed upstairs. The sound of Linda's voice followed soon after, sharp, accusing, muffled by the ceiling. I turned the lamp off and sat in the dark, listening. The house creaked under the weight of their fury. I'd spent a lifetime building this home, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. Now it was cracking from within, but not for long. The next morning, they were gone. I found a note on the kitchen counter written in Linda's neat, hostile script. We're staying with friends until you come to your senses. Don't touch our things. Her things. Half the furniture, most of the appliances, the overpriced espresso machine. All purchased on my credit line. I made myself breakfast the way Ellen used to. 2 eggs, buttered toast, a slice of tomato. The sunlight through the curtains painted everything gold. And for the first time, the house didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a fort reclaimed. After breakfast, I dialed Margaret. It's done, she said before I could speak. Restitution is proceeding. They've frozen his accounts. The brokerage funds are being transferred back to your trust by next Thursday. Will there be repercussions? I asked. Oh, there already are, she said dryly. The bank's internal audit has reported him for breach of fiduciary duty. He'll be lucky to avoid charges. I thanked her, hung up, and stared out the window for a long while. In the garden, the rose bushes Ellen planted were blooming again, yellow and white, her favorite colors. I knelt to prune the dead stems, feeling the sting of the thorns. Justice always pricks on its way through. A week later, they returned. I heard the car before I saw them. The sputter of a luxury engine bought on other people's money. Linda came in first, her sunglasses hiding nothing. Michael followed, shoulders slumped, his face drawn. We need to talk, he said. About? He dropped into a chair opposite me, his hands clasped. They froze everything. The house, the business accounts. I can't even pay the rent on our place. Our place? I repeated softly. This is my house, Michael. Always was. Linda cut in, her voice trembling with anger. You're ruining our lives. For what? A few dollars? You'll die soon enough. What difference does it make? Who has the money? The words hung in the air like poison. Even Michael flinched. Linda, I said, the difference is that one of us earned it. She stood up abruptly. Come on, Michael. He's enjoying this. He didn't move. His voice dropped to a whisper. Dad, I just need some time. I'll fix this. I'll pay back. I know you will, I said, reaching for the envelope already on the table. Because the court will see to it. He looked up sharply. You filed a lawsuit? No, I said. Margaret did. I merely signed my name, something you've been doing for me too often lately. He stared, jaw tightening. You take your own son to court? I take anyone who forged my name and drained my life's work, I said quietly. Blood doesn't erase arithmetic. Linda turned and left, slamming the door so hard a picture fell from the wall. Michael lingered for a moment longer, then followed her, shoulders heavy with something that looked almost like shame. When the car finally pulled away, the house exhaled. 2 months later, the restitution came through. The brokerage returned the stolen funds. The bank reversed the credit debt. My lawyer sent me a formal letter. Case closed. I took a taxi to a small assisted living community just outside Tacoma. Nothing fancy. A single room with a view of pine trees and a little lake. Peaceful, predictable, paid for entirely in full. When I moved in, the nurse asked if I wanted help unpacking. No, thank you, I said. I've spent a lifetime putting things in order. That first night, I sat by the window with my old ledger on my lap. The pages smelled faintly of ink and time. I wrote one final entry. Recovered funds, $97,320. Losses restored. Balance, peace. Then I closed the book. One morning in early September, a letter arrived, forwarded from my old address. The handwriting was Michael's. Inside a single page. Dad, I lost everything. Linda left. The business is gone. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I was stupid greedy. You were right about everything. Michael. I sat with the letter for a long time. The words blurred, not from tears, but from age. At last, I took a pen and wrote 3 words beneath his. Account settled, son. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in the ledger, between the pages where his name first appeared and where the numbers finally balanced. Outside, the pines swayed gently in the wind. Somewhere down the hall, someone was playing an old jazz record, soft and crackling. I poured myself a small glass of brandy, raised it toward the fading light, and murmured to Ellen, wherever she was, order restored. The liquid burned a little on the way down, the kind of burn that reminds you you're still alive. I leaned back in the chair, listening to the record static and the quiet rhythm of the rain, and allowed myself a rare, thin smile. After all, every good accountant knows, the last line on the ledger is always the cleanest. Autumn arrived like an apology. Soft rain, slow mornings, and that particular smell of wet pine that always made me think of Ellen. At the assisted living home, they called it Maple Terrace, though the maples had already shed most of their leaves by October. The air carried the faint scent of oatmeal and antiseptic, and every corridor hummed with a low murmur of televisions and wheelchairs rolling over linoleum. I liked it here. It wasn't home, but it was clean, predictable. No raised voices, no slammed doors. The nurses were polite, the coffee strong enough to remind me that bitterness still had its place in the world. I had my own corner room, 1 armchair, a desk, a shelf of old books, and a small balcony where I could watch the lake ripple under the morning fog. I spent most days writing in my ledger, not for money anymore, but for clarity. Old accountants never really retire. We just start balancing other things. Regret, memory, silence. News of Michael came through Harry, my neighbor back in Cedar Avenue. He called once a week, his voice gruff but kind. Kid sold the BMW, Harry said one afternoon. House went up for auction too. Banks reclaiming it. Guess the market didn't smile on him. I'm sure it didn't, I said, stirring my tea. His wife left him, moved to Arizona, apparently, teaching yoga of all things. Fitting, I murmured. She was always flexible with the truth. Harry chuckled. You gonna reach out? Maybe, I said, but not yet. Because truth be told, I wasn't sure what I'd say. There's no accounting entry for forgiveness. It doesn't balance the books. It just sits there, a number that refuses to reconcile. In late November, I received another letter. This one not from Michael, but from Margaret, my lawyer. It was short, to the point, exactly her style. Restitution payments completed. Legal proceedings officially closed. I suggest updating your will to reflect the new trust ownership. If you'd like, I can draft a version that excludes certain beneficiaries. I smiled when I read that last line. She didn't need to name him. The next day, I met with her in person. Her office smelled of paper and polish, the scent of quiet competence. She adjusted her glasses, studying me over the rim. You could still give him something, she said carefully. A gesture, perhaps. Sometimes generosity lands heavier than punishment. I've given him enough, I replied, but I'll leave him something. She tilted her head. A warning? A lesson, I said. Christmas came. The residents decorated the dining hall with string lights and fake snow. Someone played carols on an old upright piano, slightly out of tune, which somehow made it better. I bought small gifts for the nurses, boxes of chocolate, handwritten thank you notes. It felt good to give, without expectation. Then on Christmas Eve, I mailed a package to my son. Just a plain brown envelope with my handwriting on the front. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Balance sheet. Liabilities, $97,000 repaid. Assets, one father's trust revoked. Moral equity, pending review. And below that, a check, $1, to close the account between us. I imagined his face when he opened it. The confusion, the anger, the recognition. Maybe he'd laugh. Maybe he'd tear up. Maybe he'd frame it as a reminder. It didn't matter. I was done keeping his books. Life at Maple Terrace settled into rhythm. Mornings with coffee and the paper. Afternoons with chess against a retired librarian named Victor. Evenings with jazz on the radio. I even joined a small group that met on Wednesdays for memory writing. Most of them wrote about lost loves or favorite vacations. I wrote about balance sheets and trust funds. Mine just had more villains in the margins. One of the nurses, Anna, liked to tease me. You always write in numbers, she said. Don't you ever get tired of counting? I smiled. Numbers don't lie, Anna. People do. She laughed, shaking her head. Then you must like the truth a lot. I've grown fond of it, I said. It's expensive, but worth every penny. In March, Michael came. I was on the balcony, trimming the small bonsai the staff had given me for my birthday. When I heard the knock, I thought it was Anna with my afternoon pills. But then I saw him standing in the doorway, thinner, older, eyes hollowed out like something had been carved from behind them. He looked at me the way a man looks at his reflection after too long, searching for the part that's still recognizable. Dad, he said quietly, you look well. I am, I replied, not offering him a seat yet. You don't. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I messed up. I know that. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, I said. Saves us both the trouble. He winced, but nodded. I just came to say, I'm sorry. I really thought I was helping you. I don't know when it turned into. He gestured helplessly. This. You stop seeing the difference between helping and taking, I said. That's when we stood there in silence. The wind rustled through the pines. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. A bright, clean sound that didn't belong to either of us. Do you hate me? He asked finally. No, I said, but I don't trust you either. And that's worse. He nodded again, slower this time. I understand. He turned to go, then paused. That check you sent? The $1 one. I framed it. I smiled faintly. Good. A reminder of value. Of debt, he said. Same thing, I murmured. When he left, I sat back down with the bonsai, trimming one more small branch. Sometimes you have to cut something living to keep the shape true. Spring came. The lake outside my window thawed, ducks returned, and sunlight spilled across the floor each morning like quiet forgiveness. My heart still aches sometimes, not the physical kind, but the old ache that comes from loving people who've forgotten how to love you back. But the world kept its rhythm. And so did I. On my last night, before moving to a smaller cottage unit, I opened my ledger one final time. The pages were full, dates, figures, notes, and somewhere between the math. The story of a man who finally learned to audit his own life. I took a pen and wrote the last entry in neat, steady script. Final account. Debts repaid. Lessons collected. Heart balanced. Then I closed the book and whispered to the empty room. Ledger closed. The rain began softly against the glass, as if the world was signing its own quiet approval. I turned off the lamp, leaned back in my chair, and let the dark settle. Not heavy this time, but peaceful. After all, everything had balanced in the end. Even him, even me.